We all remember the Madagascar trilogy, where the 4 animals escape to Madagascar, and thus spawn the Penguins movie and a 3-season show, along with a 6-season King Julian show, and on top of all of that, an 8-season show about the 4 animals as babies. This is a big franchise, but most importantly, this series spawned Mort, the cute and lovable lemur. Mort is revealed to come from the Mortverse, a dimension made of Mort kind, and he is also likely immortal. So what I thought was just simply some movies and shows about talking animals took a sharp turn about warring kingdoms, hierarchical systems, time travel, magic, and transdimensional beings. And like everything, it all starts in my home state of Antarctica. 3 penguins are born: Skipper, Kowalski, and Rico. It's supposed to be the mid-1990s, but time is sort of irrelevant. These cute little guys are brothers. They also believe they are some sort of secret agents. Skipper is their leader, sort of has a devil-may-care attitude. Kowalski is incredibly smart, capable of creating Earth-destroying weapons. And Rico, he's Rico. I'm rather confident in saying that his stomach is a pocket dimension, as he can literally hack up anything, either important or just random. An egg rolls past them at Mach 4, and in their attempt to rescue it, they end up on a small iceberg floating somewhere. Inside the egg is their newly adopted brother, who they call Private. None of them seemingly have any family, so these highly capable toddlers set sail for the horizon. As their squad grew up, their skills became greater, and along the way they make quite a few friends, and also a lot of enemies. 2 of the friends they made were Manfredi and Johnson. Not much is known about their 2 penguin colleagues, but they once worked with the penguins, but then one day they didn't. Skipper recalls that they died horrifically, but every time he tells the story, it changes drastically, so it's unknown how they actually died. There's more confusion added when it's revealed that they didn't actually die. So what made Skipper think they did? At some point between being babies and living in the Central Park Zoo, Skipper encounters this off-brand penguin, Hans the Puffin, and they have a bit of a rocky past. Once again, Skipper doesn't elaborate all too much, but something they did got Skipper banned from the entire country of Denmark. And then we don't hear from the penguins for a while. So jumping over to Africa, a little baby lion, Alakai, son to Zuba and Flory, is captured by poachers after his father was distracted fighting Alakai's uncle Makunga. That's fun to say. After being captured, Alakai floated to New York in his box cage, and his father Zuba searched for him for years, but eventually gave up. Once in New York, Alakai was put into the Central Park Zoo, where he would meet many new friends, segueing into the baby show called Paw Patrol Africa Edition. Excuse me, I read that wrong. Madagascar a Little Wild. I'm insinuating this show is nothing special. It takes the main 4 from Madagascar: Alakai, now Alex the lion, Marty the zebra, Gloria the hippo, and Melman the giraffe, babyfies them and sticks them in their cages. And they also give them a child's voice. Every episode has one of those basic morals that every kid is supposed to know. Don't judge a book by its cover, believe in yourself, accept everyone from all walks of life, including non-binary animals, you know, the typical. There's a few characters that are introduced, but none are really important because they are nowhere to be seen when the animals are grown in the movies. But this is Kate, the main zookeeper. This is Pickles and Dave, the chimps. There's Lucia the sloth, the rats, Rocky, Riley, and Raphael, Lala the frog, who actually gets a character arc that's as small as her, where she starts out as a tadpole and slowly evolves to a frog, Starline, a hermit crab, Bartholomew the bat, Odie the okapi, Bill the flamingo, and Antony the pigeon. At the very end of the 8 seasons, each of the main 4 get their own conclusions. Not that it's important for them to, because, you know, we'll see them in 10 years. Alex's conclusion is him going to space. Not really. But the 2 monkeys, Pickles and Dave, do. This show is nothing special. I didn't even know it existed. But it doesn't seem that awful for the age range it's intended for. Jumping back to Africa, specifically Madagascar, we're diving deep into the All Hail King Julian show. And like the baby show, I had no clue this even existed. It's a really dumbed down Game of Thrones in animal form. Well, Game of Thrones might be an overstatement. You get my point. In the jungle, there is the Lemur Kingdom, led by King Julian XII. That's not him. It's this guy. He's a meanie. And he becomes a really, really meanie. His nephew is the King Julian XIII. The I like to move it one. In case you don't know him, he's basically a drunk. He also has a butler, Maurice. Deeper into the jungle lives the Fusa. They're like a skimpy lion. I'm not sure. I prefer not to comment much on the big cat species. Last time I did that was in the Chima video and I called a panther a species or something like that. I'm not even sure. And the comments are filled with a bunch of actually, so I plead the fifth. Uncle King Julian is told a prophecy by his magic chameleon Masakura that the king is going to be killed by the Fusa. So rather than die, he abdicates his throne, and thus Julian XIII becomes King Julian Julian XIII, the most inept king possible. With his herald Maurice and his new security Clover, he leads the lemur kingdom now. Once King Julian defeats the Fusa, he proves himself not as inept as previously thought, but any credibility is quickly killed when he accidentally creates a rebellion against himself. His biggest fan accidentally joins this rebellion. His biggest fan, you know who I'm speaking of, Mort. He is obsessed with King Julian. After King Julian saves him with his foot, Mort becomes more obsessed with him, specifically his feet. He goes as far as pretending to be Julian's son to be closer to him. When I've talked about weird fetishes in my videos in the past, which surprisingly pops up in a lot of shows, I'm usually saying it jokingly. Of course, the writers aren't actually conveying their fetishes in the shows they're writing. Well, I take that back. However, the thing with Mort being absolutely infatuated with King Julian's feet, utterly besotted with them dogs, it's hard not to question, is this done for a gag or something else? I mean, just see for yourself. I'm sorry to put you through that. So Uncle King Julian comes back and he finds out his nepoticide plan didn't work. So he becomes the antagonist of the entire show, trying to kill his own nephew. But before I get more into that, how about some more characters? There's Crimson, twin sister to Clover. Get it? Tommy James and the Shondells. Everyone understands that reference. It totally resonates with Gen Z. Julian falls in love with her, but because of his commitment issues, he breaks off their engagement, so naturally her next step is to join Uncle King Julian and band together to kill Julian. Carl, he's a self-proclaimed genius and supervillain. He too tries to kill King Julian. Rob, Julian's old best friend, and he's the victim of a Phantom of the Opera parody. Timo, he's the smart inventor character. Every show has to have one. There's the entire Crocodile Kingdom, a neighboring kingdom to the Lemur Kingdom. Another neighbor is the Kingdom of Rats, led by King Joey. Stanislav, a Russian monkey cosmonaut, who crashed on the island of Madagascar. Turns out there's an entire island known as Monkey Island filled with these Russian primates. And there's one more character, Sage, a big old dude, and Clover crushes for him. To sum up the plot very simply, Uncle King Julian and Crimson try to kill Julian and reclaim the throne, but it never quite goes their way. The plot changes a bit when Julian's parents show up and they stick around for a little while. Nothing's all that eventful, besides Julian begging for a brother. Kinda weird begging your parents to, and then they start a war with the butterflies. And then also King Julian builds a big wall so that he can keep out the people that don't look like him. So Julian asks Timo to build him a cloning machine, because I guess that can just happen in Madagascar. Eventually out pops a bunch of Julians, and when Mort gets a hold of it, he opens the Mortverse, releasing the leader, Mordecai Khan, and his Mort Horde. I mean, it's kinda like how there's a lot of Ricks and a lot of Mortys. I'm not sure. Smart Mort reveals that it wasn't a cloning machine, but rather a dimensional portal, and it opened a gateway to the Julian multiverse. And now, it's a portal to the Mortverse. As Mordecai Khan and his horde ravages their home, the only way to stop them is, drumroll please, feet. And so they create a giant foot blimp. Voila. Fixed. King Julian then discovers a lemur out in the jungle, and this lemur is named Kodo. When they arrive back home, Sage reveals that Kodo is his brother and that he is dangerous, but Julian doesn't heed his warning. And wham bam, Kodo's a scam, the entire kingdom is overthrown. Julian, Maurice, Clover, basically all the main guys are thrown out, besides our boy Mort. Kodo then rules the kingdom with an iron fist. The show becomes very serialized and super serious, and King Julian creates his own army to fight Kodo. Honestly, I think Mort is the main character of this season. While the only main character in the kingdom, he takes up espionage and creates a revolution against Kodo. Julian builds his army, which includes the space chimps, and Mort takes it upon himself to also build his own army. So he heads to the Mortverse to acquire the Mort Horde. Once there, he challenges Mordecus Khan for the Horde. And would you like to know how Mort defeats Mordecus Khan? I'll tell you in 11 words. He eats dirt, he throws up, and then absorbs Mordecus Khan. Meanwhile, King Julian dies. This is actually the second time he has died. So in the afterlife, he is put on trial to see if he should get a second chance. And apparently he deserves one. With King Julian's army paired with the Mort Horde, they defeat Kodo and he dies. Womp. Womp. Ending what was called the War of the Beasts. This whole season was called Exiled, and it's a lot more complicated. There's a whole thing with snails and pineapples, but I mean, you get the gist. The next and final season is far less eventful. King Julian realizes the error of his ways and decides to actually listen to his people. So I guess, sort of giving democracy a chance. But he learns that it's just too hard, so he goes back to monarchy. He also begins to propagandize and surveil his people. He also rigs an election. This doesn't even sound like monarchy anymore. Clover and Sage get hitched, and then before King Julian becomes too totalitarian, a certain visitor washes up on the beach. But before I can say who that visitor is, I mean, you probably know, it's Alex. But first, we gotta head back to the Central Park Zoo. It's unknown how long it's been. They retcon the times, the ages, the years, and all that good stuff that gives a concrete foundation. When the first movie takes place, Marty the zebra turns 10. And that was in 2005, implying the baby show is in the mid-90s. But then there's some contradictory information that in the Penguins movie, Private turns 10, which then means Private was only 1 in the first movie, despite in the Penguins show, Skipper is 35 and they were babies at the same time. So let's sorta just throw age and dates out of the picture. But anyway, back in New York. Alex is grown and is the self-proclaimed king of New York, and in his neighboring cages are adult Marty, adult Gloria, and adult Melman. Now in their own enclosure are the 4 penguins, and it's unknown how they ended up there. Do you remember all those characters that were introduced in the baby show? Let's see what happened to them. So Kate quit her job and went somewhere else. Pickles and Dave were launched into space. Perhaps they went to the Monkey Island near Madagascar. Lucia the sloth, dead. Rocky, Riley, and Raphael the rats, dead. Lala the frog, dead. Starlene, a hermit crab, dead. Bartholomew the bat, dead. Odie the okapi, dead. Bill the flamingo, dead. And finally, Antony the pigeon, dead. They don't say it, but they're dead. We all know that's the case. I should also mention there are 2 new chimpanzees, Phil and Mason. In issue 1 of the comic book series, yes, that actually exists, Alex and Nana, the old evil lady from the movies, go on a little tiny adventure. But it's more important than issue 4 of the series where Alex becomes the mascot for the zoo fan club. Now onto the Christmas special before the first movie. There's a new guy, Ted the polar bear, and he's all alone on Christmas, so Private wants to cheer him up. Ted, voiced by Patrick Star himself, celebrates Christmas with his Arctic friends, and the 4 main Zoosters are, barely in this. But they are in the first Madagascar movie. But I cannot talk about that yet, because first, there's the Game Boy game Operation Penguin, where you play as Private, navigating through multiple zoo habitats, trying to escape, and that's it. Now to the movie. Chances are you've seen this, so let me just... The penguins finally escape, which inspires Marty to as well. Alex, Gloria, and Melman chase after him, and they end up on a boat and they wash up on Madagascar. There they meet King Julian. Now the King Julian show and the movie are officially connected. Alex likes the wild a little too much and goes crazy. He also saves everyone from the Fusa, but they discover the grass isn't any greener on the other side. Surprise, the penguins arrive on the boat they took over. The animals are saved. Psych, it's broken. And that's the first movie. So in the meantime, while they're stuck on the beach, Santa flies over and they cause him to crash. Welcome to the second Christmas special. Merry Madagascar. After Santa gets amnesia from the crash, the penguins argue with his reindeer, something about the north versus south. I'm not gonna get into that. But the penguins take on the reindeer role and the 4 Zoosters become Santa and fly across the world. But on Madagascar, Santa is forced to suffer with King Julian and his celebration of Julianuary. They save Christmas and then crash into Santa again, making him remember, and he leaves. In the second issue of the comics, they also try another way to get off the island. I can't tell you what that is because I don't own the book and I'm stuck with a small paragraph synopsis, so I don't actually know what they do. Now on to Madagascar Escape to Africa, the second movie. Once again, I'm assuming you have seen this. My comments hate it when I dwell on a well-known piece of media, so I'm talking about it fast. They have built a plane so the four Zoosters, along with the penguins, the chimps Phil and Mason, and King Julian, Maurice, and Mort fly to New York. Their trip is cut short when they crash in Africa. Well, they were already in Africa, but the contiguous continent. There they find all of their species. Alex finds his family, including but not limited to Zuba and Mukunga, and Gloria finds Moto Moto, the guy that likes them big and chunky. Marty has an identity crisis and is barely in this movie, despite feeling like the main character last time. Melman has also fallen in love with Gloria. I'd like to see how that works out. So Mukunga tries to destroy Alex's family, and it's a huge event. They defeat Mukunga, basically. Also, a group of tourists, including Nana, are stranded in Africa, and they are abused by the penguins who are trying to rebuild the plane. Everything comes to a nice conclusion, but I have to pause. In between the final scene of the movie and the conclusion of the Mukunga story, there's Madly Madagascar, the Valentine's Day special. Who in the world does a Valentine's Day special? Either way, it's not important. Alex has ego problems, Marty is manipulative, and Gloria and Melman celebrate their love. And Skipper has fallen in love with a bobblehead. Now resuming to the end of number 2, Skipper and the bobblehead along with the other penguins leave Africa for their honeymoon, stranding the others. Which leads us directly into the third movie. It sold $750 million, so I'm sure you've seen this one. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. The gang joins a circus, so the Zoosters become fugitives, and the frumpy lady named Dubois tries to kill them, specifically Alex, so they join a circus to escape her. At the beginning, there's a really fun chase scene. I had to mention it because that was really cool. Alex falls in love with Gia, a jaguar. There's also a tiger named Vitaly, voiced by Walter White himself, and there's a Martin Short sea lion, Stefano, all pretty great characters. They basically practice and perform and defeat Dubois. King Julian falls in love with a bear. That was a very dumb story. They were trying to get back to New York in the process of all of this, and learn once again the grass isn't greener on the other side, so they stick with the circus. And that's actually like the conclusion of Alex's, Marty's, Gloria's, and Melman's stories. After the third movie, there's a Penguins of Madagascar comic book. There's not much info on it, so I don't know what it entails, but I know it's the next event. And after that, those pesky penguins get their own movie. There's an evil octopus, and he hates the penguins because he was neglected in the zoos because of them, so he wants to deform all the penguins around the world. The penguins kind of team up with a secret agency called Northwind. The leader is a wolf character, and it makes me a little uncomfy talking about him because I know what kind of art lurks around the World Wide Web of wolf characters. This is Classified, this is Eva, this is Corporal, and this is Short Fuse. Their personalities are the same as the penguins. Smart leader, the tech one, coincidentally, they make out and fall in love. The crazy one, and miscellaneous. They defeat Dave really easy, and Private saves the day, returning all deformed penguins back to normal. But he is doomed to a deformity. At the end of the movie, the lemurs make a cameo and they use Mort to undeform Private. Mort seemingly is fine without any effects, but then he eats King Julian whole, which implies Mort continues his life slightly weirder. And now, on to the magnum opus. Not really. Penguins of Madagascar show, one of the 3 DreamWorks crossovers with Nickelodeon. This show is a doozy. It's a good show, but it makes the timeline wacky. So somehow after the movie, the penguins, King Julian, Maurice, Mort, Phil, and Mason end up back in the Central Park Zoo. How come? Issues 3 and 4 of the Penguins comics take place after the Penguins movie, but again, I don't know what they're about, and it probably doesn't explain how they got back to New York. Also, issue 1 takes place before Madagascar 1. Thought I should mention that now, not back then. I don't really know, it's also not probably really important. The show is basically the penguins being the penguins. King Julian and his gang get their own exhibit, and a new main character, Marlene. She's there too. She's basically the one girl character, and is friends with everybody. So in the zoo, a lot has changed since the main attractions left. There's still a few guys that have been in the background since the first Christmas special, but now we actually get to know them. I would say roughly 85% of the show relies on these characters. They show up, they deliver a plot, and then skedaddle. The main new guys are Bert the elephant, Bada and Bing the gorillas, Joey the kangaroo, Roy the rhino, Pinky the flamingo, and Fred the squirrel. And then there's a bunch that only have around 10 or so appearances. Roger the alligator, Leonard the koala, Aggie, who they hatched from an egg, and then his mother, Mother Duck. And then there's a litany of one-offs that aren't that important, but I'll mention one, Max the cat. They found him depressed and on top of a building. You get what they're saying there. All of those characters I named, aren't that important. They just make up a majority of the show, so I guess they should at least get a mention. And now the villains. Alice. She is the most main of them all. She's a zookeeper, an evil one. The Rat King, a mutated sewer rat, who is obviously the leader of the other rats, and I don't think has any connection to the 3 rats that were in the baby show. The Amarillo Kid, an armadillo with a small past with Private, where they played mini golf together. Archie, a raccoon, he's also just straight up Robin Hood. And then the other main villains come from the Hoboken Zoo. Its inhabitants are the worst of the worst. Some of the villains from there are Barry, a poison dart frog, Savio, an anaconda, Lulu, a chimp that Phil also falls in love with, Ma, the opossum, and finally Clemson, a lemur who tries to be King Julian's right-hand man to overthrow him. He also brings up Julian's birth certificate, saying that he wasn't actually born in Madagascar, that way he can't legally be king. Ah, the early 2010s. Good times. Making parodies of the events that actually occurred then. Gotta love it. How about when there was a Winky shortage and Private goes a little crazy? That episode is making fun of when Hostess went bankrupt. Does anyone remember when Twinkie production in the US stopped in 2012? I don't personally, but I know of it. I'm getting distracted. There was a zookeeper in Hoboken named Frances Alberta, albeit not exactly a villain, but sort of weird. In one episode, she replaced the Hoboken animals with robots because she liked cleanliness. She was arrested at the end of the episode for what she did, so kinda counts. Another quote-unquote villain, not in Hoboken, is Jiggles, a little jello cube Kowalski created. Jiggles became quite the issue and started wreaking havoc and eating everything. They defeat it, and Skipper instructs Kowalski to destroy it, but rather, he just shrinks it and changes its behavior. So instead of growing in size, it can now multiply, which once again causes a lot of havoc. They solve their problem this time by launching it into space, and thus the space squids can deal with it. Huh? Oh yeah, the space squids. They are exactly that. One gets to Earth when Lemmy the robot lemur returns to Earth. Yeah, that was a whole thing, don't worry about that. But yeah, the space squids aren't really threats for the penguins. Everything is always defeated super easily. They run into them again when they send Private to space. Well, they don't do it, NASA does. Like I said, this show is a little wild. Well, that was also the baby show, but you know what I mean. The final main villain is the Red Squirrel, the penguin enemy number 1. He has multiple episodes dedicated to him. Special Agent Buck Rogut originally brought down the Red Squirrel, but then he escaped and Buck went a little crazy. When they deal with the Red Squirrel, Buck is there to assist, and someone else there to help is Private's uncle Nigel. This one confused me. Way back when he was a baby, Private was just a rolling egg, no family in sight, and was never seen again by anyone in Antarctica. How would his uncle know him? Oh well. The Red Squirrel was only in like 4 episodes, and in my humble opinion was extremely underused. Before I get to the main story of this show, Dr. Blowhole, I want to talk about the subliminal messaging and Kowalski's crazy inventions, and we'll start with those. While not exactly important to the overarching story, they add to his character and take up a lot of episodes. He invents a telekinetic helmet, a de-aging machine, he brings back the dodo, he creates multiple world-ending machines, he created Jiggles, which I already mentioned, he invents a time-stopping machine, and my favorite, that seemingly appears in every single show I talk about, a time machine. And we're moving on, so I don't have to explain it. Now, this is the part where I get too over-analytical about certain episode plots that are more than likely average or slightly weird episode themes. A few episodes strangely have something to do with addiction. In one episode, Mort is addicted to Julian's feet. Well, that's always. But in this episode, Julian creates a law that no one can touch his feet. Mort struggles so bad with this that he is put through training and counseling. However, in a separate episode where Mort becomes addicted to other feet, King Julian then misses his toe sucker. Now to King Julian's addiction, it's his crown, and he doesn't know what to do without it, and he has to be calmed down when it becomes lost. In another episode, he has such immense fear that Maurice is going to overthrow him, he becomes paranoid. His fear is realized in a different episode when Maurice goes mad and then actually becomes a dictator. My point is with all of this is that the show is warning against addiction and the dangers of power. In other episodes, it deals with phobias, such as Skipper's with needles. Skipper also questions if he is a girl in one episode, and has a crisis over all of that. There's an episode where they demonstrate propaganda, and another episode where the monkeys have a slight disagreement and split up. You know what they're implying with that. Divorce. And then Private falls in love with a human, so I think they're talking about the dangers of human and animal relations. I could be wrong. And there's an episode where Private molts. I don't know what that one means, but it's yucky. There's also an episode that I think might be imitating the brony fandom. The theories run deep, but bottom line, this show is just one giant allegory for the dangers of the world and the consequences of corporate America. I'll get back to you in 5 to 7 business days with how I came to that conclusion. Now on to Dr. Blowhole. Who is that, you ask? He is a cyborg dolphin. The penguins and him have a past, but that past is a little vague. He shows up and wants revenge on the humans after he was subject to their entertainment. But he also wants revenge on the penguins. Again, vague. He first sends Rhonda the walrus into the zoo as a spy. Then he does the supervillain thing, tries to conquer, but is stopped by the penguins. But then he returns, and he enlists the help of Hans the Puffin, and then captures Skipper and infiltrates his mind to find his HQ. And once again, almost wins. He gets close, but then nope. His mind is wiped, and he gets put in Seaville, and is subject to human entertainment once more. So one day, completely irrelevant to Dr. Blowhole, Doris the dolphin, whom Kowalski has had a long-time crush on, requests Kowalski's help to rescue her brother Francis from Seaville. Dun dun dun! Her brother is Dr. Blowhole, but it's actually just Flippy now because his memory is gone. Well, thanks to a platypus that Blowhole was indebted to, Blowhole's memory is regained. They have a fight, defeat the platypus, but not Blowhole, and they basically live happily ever after. Kowalski finally gets to make out with his dolphin woman. Weird. The penguins worry about Blowhole's inevitable return, and they're like, yup, it'll probably happen. And too bad the show's over, but there's always room for a video game. The Penguins of Madagascar, Dr. Blowhole, returns again. Sure do like to fill up half the cover with that name. In the game, they just fight him again. It's pretty simple. And one more thing to finish off the timeline. The Madagascar comic book issue number 3, starring King Julian. He returns to Madagascar. I don't know how. They might explain it. Again, I don't have the book. He finds out there's a new king, so he fights to get it back. So the synopsis online says. And maybe he stays there. Maybe he doesn't. If anyone has the book, let me know. Although the video is already made, and I'm not changing it. There's also a Walmart promotion. I don't know how this fits into the timeline, but the Zoosters are in Walmart. Also, why hasn't there been a Madagascar 4 yet? This year will be the 13th year without a Madagascar sequel, not including the Penguins movie. It's the prime time. Nothing is original anymore, so reboot the franchise. Although maybe they all died. They have just about hit their maximum lifespans. Alex is definitely dead. Gloria still might be kicking though. Well, that's about it. I don't think I'm missing any games or anything that imply a greater DreamWorks universe. Yeah, I don't think I'm missing anything. If such thing were to exist, I wouldn't know how to explain it anyway, so I would think if hypothetical thing were to exist, it probably wouldn't be worth mentioning. Oh wait, there is a game, Madagascar Karts. It has Shrek and Bob, which implies there's an expanded universe.